Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Rodney, and I am 28 years old. I write code for a living, the kind of steady office job that pays the bills on time and keeps the lights on without any drama. For most of my life, I have been the reliable one, the person who shows up early, remembers deadlines, and thinks about the future before buying something expensive. For a long time, I thought that reliability would be enough to build a life with someone. For 3 years, that someone was my girlfriend, Jasmine. I believed we were building something solid together, and I held on to that belief even as it began to crumble right in front of me. I met Jasmine in college at a party off campus in Atlanta. A friend from my programming lab dragged me along because he said I worked too much and needed to see daylight that was not filtered through a computer screen. The apartment was packed, music was loud, and people were dancing in the living room while red plastic cups collected on every flat surface. I was in the corner with a beer in one hand and my laptop bag still over my shoulder, answering a few messages from a group project. That was when Jasmine walked in with a group of friends, laughing at something one of them said, her voice bright enough to cut through the noise. She made her way around the room like she already knew everyone, even though she did not. Someone introduced us by the kitchen counter. "Rodney, this is Jasmine. She is in the art program," my friend said before disappearing. Jasmine smiled, tilted her head, and said she had seen me around campus with that same laptop bag. She joked that it looked like it was glued to my shoulder. I said the bag was probably the closest thing I had to a social life. She laughed, not in a cruel way, but with this warm, amused sound that made me feel like we were already sharing a joke. We started talking about classes, projects, and what we wanted to do after graduation. She talked about painting, photography, and wanting to travel for inspiration, mentioning cities like New Orleans and Chicago as if they were characters in a story she wanted to meet. I talked about software engineering, about how I like solving problems quietly in the background. She told me she liked that I seemed grounded, and that she needed more of that around her because she could get lost in her own ideas. I remember feeling surprised that someone like her, so vibrant and expressive, was interested in someone like me. We started out as friends who kept bumping into each other on campus. She would sit with me in the library sometimes, sketching in her notebook while I wrote code. She would slide her sketchbook across the table and ask what I thought, even when I told her I did not know anything about art. She said that was exactly why she liked my opinion, because I did not overcomplicate it. I liked that she made me close the laptop and actually walk outside for coffee or a late-night snack. When we finally started dating, it felt natural, like we had quietly shifted from one lane into another without a sharp turn. After graduation, things grew more serious. I landed a solid job at a tech company in Chicago that worked on business software, not glamorous but stable. Jasmine struggled to find consistent work in the art world. She bounced between freelance gigs, selling a few prints online, and working part-time at a restaurant near downtown. When we decided to move in together, I found a small but cozy apartment not too far from my office. I covered most of the rent and utilities so she could focus on building her portfolio and chasing opportunities without worrying about every single bill. At first, living together felt like the beginning of exactly what I had always wanted. I would come home from long days at the office, exhausted from debugging code and sitting in meetings, and Jasmine would be in the kitchen trying out new recipes. Sometimes she would be barefoot with paint on her hands, music playing softly while something simmered on the stove. Other nights we would eat takeout on the couch and fall asleep halfway through a show. She would lay her head on my shoulder and say that I made her feel safe, that she loved how predictable I was in the best way. Over time, small changes started to creep in. Jasmine got close to a group of people from the restaurant where she waited tables. They liked to go out after shifts, and at first it was once in a while. She would tell me she needed to blow off steam. I did not argue. I believed everyone needed their own space, and I did not want to be the controlling boyfriend who hovered over her every move. The first few times she went out, she came back laughing, dropping onto the couch beside me to tell me funny stories about drunk customers or odd songs the DJ played. Gradually, those nights out became more frequent. Once a week turned into twice, then almost every weekend. The stories changed too. Instead of telling me everything that happened, she would come in late, smelling like smoke and cheap liquor, toss her shoes by the door, and crawl into bed without saying much. When I asked how her night went, she would shrug or say she was too tired to talk. I started noticing her phone lighting up with messages while we were supposed to be spending time together. The screen turned just slightly away from me. One name began to appear more often in passing conversation. Tyrone. She mentioned him casually at first, describing him as her best friend from the restaurant, the bartender who everyone loved. I met him once or twice when I picked her up from work. Tyrone was tall, muscular, covered in tattoos, with the kind of easy charm that drew attention. He took shirtless gym photos and posted them online, and all of Jasmine's coworkers liked and commented on them. He was friendly toward me, offered a firm handshake, joked with Jasmine about the shift they had just survived. On the surface, he seemed harmless, but I felt something sink in my stomach when I caught how she glowed when she talked to him. I tried to push that feeling down as jealousy that I should manage better. Jasmine accused me of being too serious sometimes, and I did not want to feed into that. Still, certain moments stuck with me. Once, we were on the couch watching a movie, and her phone buzzed 3 times in a row. She giggled at the screen, her thumbs flying over the keyboard. I asked who it was, trying to keep my tone light. She said it was just Tyrone sending a meme from the bar. When I asked to see it, she rolled her eyes and said I would not get it because it was an inside joke. Something about the way she guarded the phone then made my chest tighten. The tension finally boiled into something sharper about 6 months before everything ended. I had just finished an all-nighter at the office, dealing with a critical bug for a big client. Everyone had stayed late, ordering bad pizza, and drinking too much coffee while we tried to fix an issue that threatened a contract. I dragged myself home around 6 in the evening the next day, ready for nothing more than a shower and sleep. When I opened the apartment door, Jasmine was standing in front of the mirror in our bedroom, fully dressed in a tight black dress, heels already on, carefully doing her lipstick. I leaned against the doorway and watched her for a moment, taking in how beautiful she looked and feeling an unexpected ache that I would not be the one sharing that night with her. "You look nice," I said. "What is the occasion?" She smiled at her reflection, not quite at me yet. "Some of us from the restaurant are going out," she said. "Tyrone is going to spin music at a club downtown. It is supposed to be a big night. You should come and actually have fun for a change." She turned then, eyes sharp and amused. I forced a small smile. "We have barely seen each other this week," I said. "Maybe we could stay in. We could order pizza and finally watch that movie you keep talking about. I've been staring at a screen all night at work, and I kind of just want you and the couch." Jasmine sighed in a way that made it clear she was already annoyed. She dabbed at the corner of her mouth with a tissue and shook her head. "Rodney, not tonight. I already told everyone I was going. Tyrone has been promoting this all week. It is going to be a big deal. You can come if you want, but I am not missing it." I hesitated. Clubs were not my scene. The loud music, strobe lights, and crowded dance floors drained me just thinking about them. I also could not ignore the uncomfortable feeling that had been growing every time I heard Tyrone's name. "I'm just a little worried," I said slowly. "You and Tyrone have been talking a lot lately. You stay out pretty late. I just want to know if there is something I should be aware of." Jasmine whipped around like I had insulted her. Her expression shifted from slight annoyance to something colder and sharper. "Worried about what exactly?" Jasmine said, resting one hand on her hip. "That I am going out without you. That I have friends who like to have fun." She let out a short laugh that did not reach her eyes. "Tyrone is my friend, Rodney. He actually understands me. He does not sit behind a desk all day writing code, and then come home too tired to do anything but nap." Her dismissal cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I took a breath, trying not to snap back. "I am not trying to control you," I said quietly. "I know you need your own life and your own friends. But lately you are out almost every weekend. When you are home, you are on your phone or talking about the next night out. I feel like I am becoming an afterthought in my own relationship. It makes me feel like I am not enough for you." Jasmine let out another sharp laugh, this one more openly mocking. She picked up her purse from the bed and flung the strap over her shoulder. "Not enough," she repeated. "Maybe you are right about that. I am young, Rodney. I want excitement. I want to feel alive, not stuck in some boring routine where every night looks the same. If you do not like how I live my life, then leave." I'm not changing for anyone. She turned back to the mirror, checking her lipstick one more time, as if the conversation were over. Tyrone invites me out because he actually knows how to have fun. If you are jealous of that, that is your issue, not mine. Her words hit me like a slap I never saw coming. I stood in the doorway, stunned, while she walked past me, the click of her heels loud against the floor. At the front door, she paused long enough to throw another remark over her shoulder. "Do not wait up. I will be back late," she said, her tone light and careless. Then the door closed behind her, and the apartment fell silent in a way that felt unfamiliar, even though I'd spent many nights alone in that space before. I sat on the couch and stared at the coffee table, my mind scrambling to make sense of what had just happened. I replayed the last several months in my head. I thought of the nights I canceled plans with my coworkers so I could be home when she got off her shift. I remember the promotion my manager had offered me that would have required relocating to a different office in Houston, the one I turned down after Jasmine said she did not want to leave her friends and her art connections. I thought about the time she posted photos of herself and her friends at clubs, captioning them with phrases about living her best life, while I scrolled through them alone at home. Her sentence kept echoing in my head like it was bouncing off the walls. "If you do not like how I live my life, then leave." I had heard versions of that sentiment before in smaller arguments, usually after I questioned a late night or a flirty exchange I happened to see on her phone. But that night, something in me finally shifted. It was as if a switch flipped, turning off the part of me that still believed I could fix things by being more patient, more flexible, more understanding. I realized that she did not see me as a partner anymore. She saw me as an obstacle to the kind of chaos she called freedom. I stood up, walked into our bedroom, and opened the closet. The sight hit me harder than I expected. My shirts were neatly hung on the left side, color-coordinated. Hers were on the right, dresses and tops layered between hangers. For a moment I just stood there, listening to my own breathing. Then I started pulling my clothes off the hangers and folding them into a suitcase. I moved quietly, methodically, careful not to disturb her things. I did not want a fight or a dramatic scene later. I simply wanted to be gone, completely out of the way of the life she claimed she wanted. I packed my clothes, my laptop, my books, the few gadgets I bought with my own money. I left the furniture, the bed, the dining room table we found at a thrift store, the decorations on the walls that she chose, the framed prints, the small paintings she had done, the photographs she took of city streets and sunsets stayed exactly where they were. I did not want to argue over objects. I wanted distance. By the time I finished packing and loading my car, it was close to 1 a.m. The streets outside were quiet, the city lights reflecting in the windows of parked cars. Before I left, I walked back into the kitchen. A pad of sticky notes sat by the refrigerator. I pulled one off, picked up a pen, and stared at the blank square longer than I expected. For a moment, I considered writing out a full explanation, listing all the reasons I was leaving. Instead, I wrote 6 simple sentences. "You are right. I do not like this." So I left. "Take care." I stuck the note on the kitchen counter, where she was certain to see it when she came home. Then I turned out the lights, locked the door, and walked away from the apartment that had held 3 years of my life. I drove a couple of hours to an old friend's place in Indianapolis, a friend from college named Leon who had always told me his couch was available if I ever needed it. He blinked sleepily when he opened the door and saw me there with 2 suitcases and a tired expression. "That does not look like an overnight bag," Leon said, stepping aside so I could come in. "What happened?" I shook my head and said, "It is a long story. I will tell you tomorrow." He clapped a hand on my shoulder, pointed me toward the couch, and tossed me a blanket. For the first time in a long while, even with everything falling apart, I felt a strange, quiet sense of peace settle over me. The next morning, my phone was full of notifications. Missed calls, text messages, voicemails, all from Jasmine. As I scrolled through them, a wave of doubt washed over me. I wondered if I had acted too quickly. I wondered if I should have waited for her to come home, try to talk it through again, given her one more chance to choose us over the chaos she chased. Then I remembered the expression on her face when she told me to leave if I did not like her life. There was no hesitation in her eyes, no fear of losing me, only annoyance at being questioned. Around noon, Jasmine called again. This time I answered. I held the phone in my ear and kept my voice as steady as I could. "Hello," I said. She did not waste time. Rodney, what in the world is wrong with you? Jasmine said, her voice high and sharp. I came home at 3 in the morning, and half your stuff was gone. The closet is practically empty. The drawers are empty. And you left a note? That little note on the counter? Are you serious right now? I closed my eyes briefly, then opened them and looked at the ceiling. Yes, I said. I'm serious. For a moment, there was silence on the line, as if she had expected me to backtrack. Then she scoffed. So you packed up and left because I went out to a club? She said. Because I danced with my friend? You are overreacting like a child. Nothing happened. We were just having a good time. You are acting like I cheated on you or something, and it is ridiculous. I could hear the impatience in her voice, as if the real inconvenience here was that I had forced her to deal with consequences. It is not just about last night, I said. You have been pulling away for months. You stay out late constantly. You're always on your phone. You keep telling me I am boring and predictable. You told me if I did not like how you live your life, I should leave. So I did. I'm only doing what you told me to do. Jasmine exhaled loudly, then shifted into the voice she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. Look, she said, maybe I've been distant. Relationships have ups and downs. You do not just bail because things are not perfect. Tyrone is fun, yes, but he is not you. You are the stable one, the one I come home to at the end of the night. I need both. That is how it works now. Both. I repeated. You told me monogamy is outdated, Jasmine said, as if she were explaining something obvious to a stubborn child. Everyone experiments. Everyone wants excitement and security. If you're insecure about that, that is your problem. Come back, and we can work it out. I will cut back on going out so much. We will find a balance. Her words sounded like a negotiation where she kept all the advantages, and I accepted all the discomfort. I almost laughed at how lopsided it was. Instead, I let the quiet stretch for a moment. No, I said finally. We are done, Jasmine. I deserve better than being your backup plan. Her tone sharpened. Backup plan, she said. That is not fair. You are twisting everything. Tyrone understands that life is not supposed to be all stress and responsibility. He does not judge me for wanting fun. If you loved me, you would fight for us instead of running away like a coward. The words landed, but they did not pierce me the way they once would have. Something in me had stepped back from her emotional reach. Goodbye, Jasmine, I said. Then I hung up, blocked her number, and set the phone face down on the table. The days that followed felt like moving through fog. I stayed at Leon's place for a short while. He listened without interrupting as I told the whole story, from the early days at college to the final argument by the bedroom mirror. You did what she told you to do, Leon said carefully when I finished. She said if you did not like it, you should leave. You left. That is not cowardly. That is taking her at her word. I nodded, but part of me still felt like something inside had cracked in a way I could not fully see yet. I rented a room at a cheap motel on the edge of town for a week while I looked for something more permanent. The unfamiliar walls gave me space away from reminders of the life I had just stepped out of. In the evenings, I sat on the bed with my laptop and looked for internal transfer options within my company. There was an opening in the Dallas office, similar role, same pay, just in a different city. I applied and let my manager know I needed a change of scenery. He asked if everything was all right. I said I needed to get out of Chicago, that the city held too many memories that hurt to look at. A few weeks later, I moved into a small studio apartment in Dallas. It was nothing special, just a clean space with white walls, a narrow kitchen, and a big window that looked out over a quiet street. I bought a simple bed, a second-hand couch, and a small table for my computer. For the first time in a long time, everything in the apartment belonged to me alone. There were no forgotten earrings on the bathroom counter, no splashes of paint on the kitchen table. The emptiness felt both lonely and strangely calming. I decided to see a therapist in the area, someone I found through my company's health plan, because I did not want to carry the confusion alone. In therapy, I talked about Jasmine, but I also talked about myself. I talked about the way I had dismissed small red flags because I was afraid of being alone. I talked about the time I loaned her money for art supplies, hopeful that it would support her dream, only to find out later that she used part of it for a weekend trip to Miami with coworkers, a trip that included Tyrone. I had swallowed the disappointment because she came back smiling, saying how inspired she felt. I questioned why I had labeled those moments as minor instead of seeing them as part of a pattern. My therapist, a patient woman named Michelle, listened, and then asked, "What did you get from that relationship, Rodney, besides the obligation to hold everything together?" I thought about Jasmine's early support, the way she had pulled me out of my shell in college, the warmth of our first year living together. Then I thought about the last 12 months, the constant criticism that I was too predictable, the jokes about my job, the social media posts that made me feel like a joke in my own life. "I gotta feel needed," I said after a long pause. She said I grounded her. I like being her safe place. I think I held on to that idea long after she stopped treating me like her partner. While I was piecing myself back together, news about Jasmine reached me in fragments through mutual friends, especially Leon and another friend named Crystal, who had known both of us in college. I did not ask for updates, but sometimes they slipped into conversation. One afternoon, Leon called me and said, "I know you did not ask, but I think you should know what is happening." He told me Jasmine had not just danced with Tyrone that night at the club. They had left together, and she had bragged to a few people about finally choosing excitement over a boring relationship. According to Leon, within a week of that night, Jasmine had moved into Tyrone's small apartment closer to downtown Chicago. She quit her restaurant job, convinced that his connections in the nightlife scene would help her sell more art, book gallery shows, or get involved with events. At first, she posted glowing messages on social media about new beginnings and freedom, cryptic quotes about embracing risk and chasing passion. People commented with fire emojis and phrases like, "Do you," and "Live your truth," while she posed in between flashes of neon lights and crowded bar scenes. The glow did not last long. Tyrone, it turned out, was not interested in stability in any form. He bounced between bartending shifts, side hustles, and music gigs that paid in drink tickets more often than cash. Leon said that several of Tyrone's ex-girlfriends had warned people about his temper, how he would become verbally cruel when things did not go his way, then apologize with grand gestures that kept them hooked. Jasmine ignored those warnings. She was convinced she could be the exception, the one who helped him get his life together. Instead, she found herself paying more than half the rent from what was left of her savings while he disappeared for days. Leon told me about one night when Jasmine confronted Tyrone after he stumbled in at 4 a.m, smelling like perfume that was not hers. He laughed it off, then hurled an insult at her when she pressed the issue. The argument escalated until he started throwing things around the living room, knocking over a lamp and shattering a framed photo. Someone in the building called the police. Jasmine downplayed it all later, telling friends it was just a rough patch, that Tyrone was passionate and misunderstood. But cracks started to appear in the story she had built about her new life. Without a stable job, Jasmine's bills piled up. The art she posted online drew compliments, but few actual sales. Some of the friends who had cheered on her glow up began to distance themselves when they realized she had been emotionally cheating on me for months before the official breakup. Crystal told me that Jasmine had spent a long time painting me as the controlling, boring boyfriend who held her back, using that narrative to justify what she was doing with Tyrone. When the truth started leaking out, people stopped liking her posts as often. The enthusiastic comments faded into silence. Eventually, Tyrone kicked Jasmine out after another argument, accusing her of being too clingy and needy. He moved on to someone new with the same ease he had used to move toward her. Jasmine tried staying with her sister for a while in a small house outside the city, but that situation deteriorated quickly too. There was long-standing family tension, a mother named Patricia who enabled Jasmine's worst impulses, and a sister who refused to keep cleaning up the mess. Jasmine ended up bouncing between couches, posting vague messages about how life throws curveballs without ever acknowledging her part in creating the storm. Through all of this, I stayed out of direct contact. I did not check her social media, did not remove the block, did not send any messages. There were moments when curiosity tugged at me, but I reminded myself that looking at the wreckage of her choices would not help me heal. Instead, I focused on my work, on rebuilding a life that belonged entirely to me. At the Dallas office, I settled into my new role, working on a project that involved designing tools for small businesses. I put in steady effort, and after a few months, my manager called me in his office and told me my work had earned me a raise. I started going to the gym regularly, not to chase any specific aesthetic, but to have a place to put the restless energy that used to go into worrying about Jasmine's nights out. I joined a weekend hiking group that explored trails around Texas, places like state parks and nature preserves just outside the city. On those hikes, I met people who appreciated showing up on time, bringing extra water, checking weather forecasts, and making sure everyone made it back to the trailhead safely. It felt good to be valued for the same traits that had been mocked as boring before. After a while, I dipped my toes back into dating. I did not rush into anything serious. I went to coffee with a few people, had a couple of dinners that went nowhere, and learned to notice red flags sooner. Then I met Tiffany at a community art event in a small gallery in Dallas. She was a graphic designer who did freelance branding for small businesses, and she had a quiet confidence about her that drew me in. We started talking about color palettes and user interface design, and the conversation flowed easily. When I mentioned my work in software, she did not roll her eyes or joke about me being a boring tech guy. She asked thoughtful questions about the projects I enjoyed. One of the things that struck me early on with Tiffany was that she did not treat stability as something to be tolerated. She treated it as something valuable. When I showed up on time, she noticed and thanked me. When I said I would call, I did, and she responded as if that reliability was not only expected but appreciated. We moved slowly, going from casual dinners to more intentional dates. I told her about Jasmine in broad strokes, not every detail, but enough for her to understand why I was cautious. She listened without judgment and said, "It sounds like you tried very hard. It also sounds like you finally chose yourself." I respect that. Eventually, I unblocked Jasmine's number, not because I wanted her back, but because I felt ready to stop living like I was hiding from a ghost. Messages started appearing not long after. The first ones were short, sent late at night. "Hey Rodney, can we talk?" One said. Another read, "I know I messed up. I just want to explain." I did not respond. My silence was my answer. Then the messages grew longer. She wrote about how things with Tyrone had fallen apart, how he had used her, and then left her with nothing. She asked if we could meet for coffee, said she thought about our old apartment and how I used to cook breakfast on Sundays. When I continued to ignore the texts, the phone calls began. One evening, while I was cooking dinner in my Dallas apartment, my phone rang with Jasmine's name on the screen. I let go to voicemail. Later, I walked to the table, picked up the phone, and listened. Her voice sounded thinner than I remembered, strained. "Rodney, please pick up," she said. "Things with Tyrone are not what I thought. He used me and then tossed me aside. I see now what we had. You were always there for me. I took it for granted. Please call me back. I'm going to therapy now. I'm trying to be better. Just talk to me." I felt a flicker of something, maybe pity, but it was quickly overtaken by the memory of her telling me to leave if I did not like her life. A week later, Jasmine tried a different route. Since I had moved offices, she could not find me in my old job, so she reached out to people we both knew. Crystal texted me to say that Jasmine had been asking for my new address. Leon called to warn me that she had shown up at his place one night, pounding on the door and demanding to see me. He told her I had moved and that he did not have the right to share my address without my permission. She accused him of taking my side, then left in a rush. "She is spiraling, man," Leon said. "Be careful. She is desperate to drag you back into her storm." The next attempt came from Jasmine's mother, Patricia. One afternoon, my phone lit up with a number I did not recognize. I answered, thinking it might be work-related. "Rodney, this is Patricia," she said without greeting. "You need to talk to Jasmine. She is devastated. How could you just vanish like that? After everything she has been through, you owe her at least a conversation." I took a slow breath, reminding myself to stay calm. "She told me to leave if I did not like her life," I said. I left. I'm not responsible for the fallout from her choices. Patricia scoffed loudly. "That is childish," she said. "Relationships take work. Jasmine is young. She made a mistake. That man she got involved with is a loser. We all see that now. But you're different. You are stable. You have a good job. You are exactly the kind of person she needs to get back on track. Her sister is tired of her staying there. Jasmine needs you to step up and be the bigger person." Before I could respond, I heard some rustling, and then Jasmine's voice came through the receiver. "Rodney, please," Jasmine said, her voice cracking. "Mother is right. I was stupid. I thought Tyrone was exciting, and I thought I needed that. He yelled at me. He spent all my money. He left me broke and humiliated. I see now that you were the real thing. Please, let us start over. I will change. I will stop going out all the time. I will focus on us. Just give me one more chance. For a heartbeat." The memory of early mornings with her curled against me flickered in my mind. Then I remember the night she told me monogamy was outdated, the laughter in her eyes when she called my life boring. You told me that monogamy was outdated, I said steadily. You told me I was holding you back. You told me to leave if I did not like it. I did exactly that. I'm not coming back, Jasmine. There was a pause, and her tone hardened in an instant. Freedom, she repeated, bitterness dripping into the word. Look where that so-called freedom got me. Alone, while you get to sit there and play victim. How dare you block me and ignore me like I never existed? You were selfish, Rodney. I gave you 3 years. I felt something in me finally lock into place. You did not give me 3 years, I said, my voice calm. You took 3 years from a man who loved you and treated you with respect, and then you walked away from that because it was not chaotic enough. I'm not your safety net. Goodbye. Before she could respond, I ended the call and blocked the number again. I stood in the quiet apartment for a long moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the faint sounds of traffic outside. There was no tremor in my hands, no urge to call back. There was only a sense of finality. After that, the attempt slowed. Leon told me that Jasmine showed up at his place one more time late at night, hair messy, eyes wild, pounding on the door and shouting that she needed to see me. He opened the door just enough to speak through the gap and said, Rodney is not here. You need to leave him alone. She ranted about how I had ruined her life by walking away, how everything had fallen apart because I did not fight for her. Leon repeated that I had done exactly what she demanded. Eventually she left, muttering curses as she walked down the hallway. After that, there was nothing but silence. 6 months passed. In that time, my life continued to move forward in small but meaningful ways. I received a promotion at work that came with more responsibility, but also more creative freedom. I moved from a studio apartment into a slightly larger one-bedroom place in a different neighborhood, a small complex with trees and a courtyard where neighbors sometimes sat outside in the evenings. I bought a better couch, a real dining table, and a few framed prints for the walls. Tiffany and I grew closer. We did not rush into combining our lives, but she left a toothbrush at my place one weekend and a favorite sweater on the back of a chair, the kind of small, steady steps that feel different from impulsive decisions. When my friend Leon announced that he was getting married in a small park outside Houston, I was genuinely happy for him. He asked me to be a groomsman, and I accepted without hesitation. He told me that a few people from our college days would be there, people who had known Jasmine and me as a couple. I knew that meant there was a chance Jasmine might show up somewhere in that orbit, but I did not feel afraid of that possibility anymore. By then, she felt like someone from a distant chapter of my life, significant once, but now firmly over. On the day of the wedding, the Texas sun hung warm but not unbearable over the park. White chairs were arranged in neat rows on the grass, and a simple wooden arch stood at the front, decorated with flowers. I arrived with Tiffany by my side, her hand comfortably tucked into mine. She wore a soft blue dress that brushed her knees and a silver necklace that caught the light. During the ceremony, I watched Leon's face as he said his vows, saw the way his voice wavered with emotion, and then steadied. I thought briefly of the vows I might one day make, and I felt a quiet hope instead of fear. At the reception, tables were set up under strands of lights. People laughed, toasted, and drifted between conversations. Tiffany and I sat with a group of mutual friends, some of whom had known Jasmine. There were curious glances when people saw me with someone new, but no one was rude. Crystal leaned over at one point and said softly, "I'm glad you are here, and I'm glad you look happy." I smiled and said, "I am." Tiffany squeezed my hand under the table, silent but present. It happened about an hour into the reception. I was in the middle of telling Tiffany a story about a ridiculous bug we had found at work when a ripple passed through the guests. People turned their heads toward the side entrance of the park. I followed their gaze and saw Jasmine walking toward the reception area. She was not on the guest list. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her dress wrinkled, as if she had grabbed it off the floor of a car. There was a strained look in her eyes, a mix of determination and exhaustion. She scanned the crowd quickly, searching for someone. Her gaze found me. For a split second, time seemed to slow. I felt Tiffany's hand tighten around mine, but when I looked at her, she simply raised an eyebrow in a silent question. I gave a small nod to say I was all right. Jasmine started walking straight toward our table, weaving through guests who moved aside with curious glances. I heard murmurs, saw Leon watching from across the space with a concerned frown. Jasmine stopped in front of me, breathing a little hard, as if she had hurried all the way from the parking lot. "Rodney, we need to talk," Jasmine said. Her voice was not loud, but the silence around us made it feel amplified. I stood up slowly, keeping Tiffany at my side. "This is not the place for that," I said. Jasmine's eyes flicked to Tiffany, then back to me. "Who is she?" Jasmine asked, though the answer was obvious. "Never mind. It does not matter. I am here to talk to you." She took a small step closer, ignoring the way a few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Jasmine, this is Leon's wedding reception," I said, keeping my tone even. "You are not invited. This is not the appropriate time or place for a personal conversation." She shook her head, a slight tremor in the movement. "I had to come," Jasmine said. "I heard you would be here. I tried reaching you, and you keep ignoring me. I am in therapy now. I am working on myself. I'm trying to fix what I broke. Everything has fallen apart for me. Rodney, I lost my job, my friends, my place to live. I thought I could handle that life, but I could not. You and I, we were good once. Do you not remember that? Does none of it matter to you?" I looked at her for a long moment. I saw the woman I had loved, but I also saw the choices she had made repeated over and over again. I saw the lies, the emotional games, the nights she chose someone else while I waited at home. I felt no anger, only a cool distance. "I remember," I said. "I remember the good and the bad. I remember you telling me that I should leave if I did not like your life. I remember you laughing when I told you I felt like I was not enough. I remember you saying you needed excitement and security, and that I was just the security part." Jasmine's face crumpled for a moment, then hardened again. "I was wrong," she said quickly. "I was stupid and immature. I thought I could have everything without consequences. I see now that I threw away something real. You made me feel safe. I did not realize how important that was until it was gone." "That woman," she said, nodding toward Tiffany. "That woman is just a replacement. You were trying to prove a point. You were using her to get back at me." Tiffany's posture remained relaxed, but I felt the slight withdrawal in the way she loosened her grip on my hand, stepping mentally back to give me space to respond. "No," I said calmly. "Tiffany is not a replacement for you. She is a person I care about, someone who respects me and appreciates the parts of me you mocked. My life now is not built around teaching you a lesson. It is built around finally choosing what is healthy for me." Jasmine shook her head again, on the edge of tears. "You cannot just walk away like this," she said. "You cannot just erase me. I deserve another chance." For the first time, I heard the word clearly. Deserve. It hung in the air between us, full of entitlement. I thought about the 3 years I had given, about the way I had twisted myself into knots trying to accommodate her shifting desires. I thought about the nights I'd gone to bed sick with worry, imagining her in the arms of someone else while telling myself I was overreacting. I thought about the note I left on the kitchen counter, the sticky square that marked the moment I finally believed her when she said she wanted a life that did not include me. "You do not deserve me back, Jasmine," I said quietly, but with a firmness that left no room for argument. "You deserve exactly what you chose. You chose Tyrone. You chose the nights out, the secrecy, the lies. You chose to treat me as optional while I treated you as my priority. I heard you when you told me to leave. I did, and I built a life without your chaos. I'm not going to tear that down because you regret the outcome of your decisions." Jasmine stared at me, her mouth slightly open, as if she had never considered that I might reject her even at her lowest. Around us, guests pretended not to listen, but the tension was impossible to ignore. Leon took a step in our direction, concern written on his face. I gave him a small shake of my head to signal that I had it under control. Jasmine swallowed hard, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "So that is it?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "After everything, you were just done with me?" I nodded. "I haven't done for a long time," I said. "You just did not notice because you were busy looking everywhere else." For a moment, I almost expected a final apology, something genuine that acknowledged the full weight of what she had done. Instead, Jasmine's expression twisted into anger one last time. "You were cold," she said. "Colder than I ever realized. I hope you enjoy your perfect little predictable life. Do not come crying to me when you get bored." She turned sharply and walked away, heels digging into the grass, muttering under her breath. A few guests watched her go, then looked back at me with a mixture of curiosity and silent support. I sat back down beside Tiffany. She looked at me steadily for a moment before speaking. "Are you all right?" Tiffany asked. I let out a slow breath I felt like I had been holding for 6 months. "Yes," I said. "I am all right." I realized that it was the truth. I did not feel shaken. I did not feel tempted to run after Jasmine or offer comfort. I felt something simpler. Closure. Tiffany nodded and reached for my hand again. "You handled that with more grace than many people would have," she said softly. "I am proud of you." Later that evening, after the speeches and the first dance and the cutting of the cake, Leon pulled me aside near the edge of the park. "I'm sorry she showed up like that," he said. "We did not invite her, obviously, and we will make sure she does not pull something like that again." I shook my head. "You do not have to apologize for her," I said. "She made her choice to come here. I made mine to walk away. Today is your day. I'm glad I got to see you marry someone who clearly respects you." Leon smiled, as a little glossy. "I'm glad you're doing better, man," he said. "You look lighter." When the reception began to wind down and the lights above the tables glowed softly in the early evening, Tiffany and I left the park hand in hand. The air was warm, and the sky above Houston held a faint pink tint. As we walked toward the car, I glanced back once at the laughter and the dancing behind us. I thought about the younger version of myself who would have chased Jasmine, begged her to reconsider, accepted any small breadcrumb of affection she offered. That version of me felt like a stranger now, someone I could understand but no longer inhabit. In the car, Tiffany rested her head against the seat and looked over at me. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. I started the engine and let my hands rest on the steering wheel for a moment before pulling out of the parking lot. "I am thinking," I said, "that sometimes leaving really is the most honest way to respond when someone tells you they do not value what you bring to their life." Tiffany nodded thoughtfully. "I am glad you listened to that honesty," she said. "Otherwise, we would not be here together." I smiled, felt the truth of that settle comfortably in my chest, and drove us forward into a life that no longer had room for Jasmine's ghost. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.